Lima, City of the Kings, capital of Peru. It is located in the valleys of the Chillón, Rimac and Lurin rivers, in the desert zone of the central coastal part of the country, overlooking the Pacific Ocean, together with the seaside city of Callao. On December 24, 1971, Jorge Chávez International Airport is Peru's main international and domestic airport. Lansa Flight 508, domestic passenger flight from Lima to Pucallpa in Peru. On this route the plane flew twice a day but sometimes stood idle due to repairs. At that time the 8-year-old Lancer already had a bad reputation since 2 crashes occurred with its planes that claimed 1,500 lives in 1966 and in 1970. There are 86 passengers and 6 crew members are boarding in Lansa Flight 508. The story is about Juliane Koepcke. The sole survivor was 17-year-old. A girl traveling with her mother to visit her father, who was working in the Amazonian rainforest. Flight 508 took off from Lima just before noon, and the airliner climbed to roughly 21,000 feet. A short time later, things started to get dark and the airplane began encountering turbulence. Moments later, they were engulfed in a thunderstorm, and terrifying shaking ensued. The passengers screamed as desserts, Christmas presents, drinks and flowers filled the air. The baggage compartments popped open, and suddenly luggage flew through the air as well. The clouds became darker and darker and the flight became more turbulent. It was pitch black all around us and there was constant lightning. A glistening light on the right wing. The motor was hit by lightning. It was 12:36 p.m. when lightning struck the right wing and ignited the fuel tank. The incredibly loud motor and people screaming, and then the plane fell extremely steeply. The passengers began to cry and weep and scream. The plane plummeted into a nosedive and smashes in the ground. Suddenly the noise stopped. Juliane was still belted to her seat, and fell for roughly 2 miles before impacting the canopy and jungle below. She would fade in and out of consciousness for the next 19 hours, eventually coming to the next morning. Juliane would credit the heavy rainfall for bringing her back to consciousness. The teenager was dressed in only a sleeveless mini dress and was missing a sandal and her glasses. She had a torn ACL, broken collarbone, partially fractured shin, a strained neck vertebra, one eye swollen shut and several deep cuts on her arms and legs. Despite her serious injuries, Juliane Koepcke's main concern was locating her mother. Koepcke's mother's seat had landed next to her, though it was empty. Desperate to find her mother, she began to search the area around the crash site, crawling on all fours and calling out her name. With all her survival training, Juliane was methodical and moved in small circles, staying close to her seat while memorizing the location and markings on surrounding trees. Though she did not find her mother. Eventually she attempted to move into open country, and came upon the sound of dripping and running water. Juliane located a nearby spring, which fed into a small stream. Based on the lessons her parents taught her, she was able to follow the course of the stream to a larger water source, and ultimately civilization. The battered and bruised teenager used her survival instincts to navigate the dangerous jungle, throwing her sandal ahead of her to test the area in front for poisonous snakes and rough terrain. Eventually, Juliane found a spot in the streambed where she could take refuge for the night. After a fitful night of rest, Juliane continued on her trek, pushing forward until she heard the call of the king vulture. She recognized the call from her time in Panguana and realized there were dead bodies nearby. The next day, Juliane came across the body of 3 passengers still strapped to their seats, but in the first moment after finding them, it was like I was paralyzed. She spent days searching for civilization, and by the 10th day, she couldn't stand properly and drifted along the edge of the water. In what she initially thought to be a hallucination, Juliane came across a boat moored near a small shelter. Inside the hut, the girl found gasoline, which she used to clean the wound in her arm that was infested with maggots. She would spend the night in the shelter, and the next morning was discovered by a small group of fishermen. She was brought to their village and flown to a hospital in Pucallpa, where she was reunited with her father. After being reunited with her father and recovering from her injuries, Juliane assisted search parties in locating the crash site and the bodies of the victims. On January 12, 1972, they had located the body of Maria Koepcke. She also survived the crash but was badly injured and she couldn't move. She died several days later.